Welcome to class number 24 of Basic Electronics. So last day we actually discussed about the small signal or AC model and also discussed the various parameters of the small signal or AC model. And this model is actually also known as the hybrid pi model. This I forgot to tell the last day. This model, this small signal AC model which we studied, is known as basically the hybrid pi model. Okay. Now let us actually discuss the effect of the capacitors which are generally attached or which are generally connected to the transistor. So let us draw a biasing configuration here. These are the biasing resistors. And then a capacitor is connected here, and as I stated, the function of this capacitor CE is basically to let the AC current bypass this resistor RE. Okay, because it is assumed that at the frequency that is considered in this case, or at the frequency of the AC signal, this CE would basically act as a short circuit. So the AC current would actually flow through this path rather than through this resistor RE. Okay, this basically helps to improve the gain of the transistor, because if the AC current actually flows through this resistor RE, then this resistor RE would basically load the AC signal source. Okay, so if this resistance RE lies in the path of the AC current, then this resistor RE would basically load the AC signal source, so the AC base current would actually decrease. If the AC component of the base current decreases, then the AC component of the collector current would also decrease, which would basically reduce the gain. Okay, so that is why this capacitor CE is put here, and the signal is basically provided into the base of this transistor through a capacitor. Let us call it the input coupling capacitor CI, and then we have the input source resistance RS, and then we have this signal source which we call Vi, and then it is connected to the ground, and the output voltage is taken from the collector via a output coupling capacitor C0, and this output is taken across a load resistor RL. Okay, so this is the complete diagram, the complete block diagram of our transistor amplifier. And if we actually consider only the amplifier circuit, then this part is basically the amplifier. Okay, when we buy an amplifier from the market, this portion which is covered in red loop basically comes to us. Okay, so this is provided to us when we buy an amplifier from the market. Okay, this Vi and this source resistance Rs basically are parts of the signal source that is connected across the amplifier, or that is connected at the input port of the amplifier, and this load resistor RL is basically the load resistance across which we want the amplified output. Okay, now just as I discussed earlier, that this capacitance Ci is basically put here so that no DC current actually flows in this direction through this AC voltage source Vi. Okay, because a large DC current through this AC voltage source Vi can actually damage this AC voltage source. And this coupling capacitor C0 is basically the output coupling capacitor, and it is put here so that no DC voltage actually drops across this load resistor RL. Okay, because we are not interested in the DC voltage, we are only interested in the amplified version of the input signal. Okay, we are not interested in DC voltage, we are interested in the amplified version of the input signal. That is why this coupling capacitor C0 is put here so that no DC voltage actually drops across this load resistor RL. Okay, so across the external load there is only AC voltage drop. Okay, so these are the three capacitors that are connected externally to this amplifier circuit. Okay, these three capacitors Ci, Ce and C0 are not internal capacitors of the transistor. Okay, of course, when we buy the amplifier from the market, all these three capacitors Ci, Ce and C0 would actually be present, but these three capacitors are not internal capacitors of the transistor. These three capacitors are part of the transistor amplifier, but these three capacitors are not internal capacitors of the transistor. Okay, these are basically connected externally to filter out DC components, okay, or to provide a short circuited path to the AC components. Okay, now in addition to these three capacitors Ci, C0 and Ce, we also have the internal capacitances of the transistor. Okay, because we know that a transistor basically consists of two PN junctions, okay, two back-to-back PN junctions, and we have learned, when we have done diodes, we have learned that a PN junction has a capacitance of its own. Okay, so one capacitance is known as the depletion capacitance and another capacitance is known as the diffusion capacitance, and this capacitance basically occur at the PN junction due to the storage of depletion charge and due to the accumulation of excess minority carriers. This we have discussed when we have discussed our classes on diodes. Okay, so a PN junction basically has a capacitance on its own because there would be depletion, stored depletion charge. Okay, in P side there would be accumulation of negative charge in the depletion layer, and in the N side there would be accumulation of positive charge in the depletion layer, and this accumulation of charge basically gives rise to a capacitance, and also there is some excess minority carriers or excess electrons in the P side just outside the depletion layer, and there is also some excess holes in the inside just outside the depletion layer. Okay, so this accumulation of depletion charge and accumulation of this excess minority carriers basically give rise to the depletion and diffusion capacitance respectively. Okay, so at a PN junction we know that there are capacitance, or a PN junction has a capacitive property. Okay, of course it has the properties of PN junction also, but it also has a capacitance of its own. Okay, so we have two junctions here, one is the base to emitter junction and one is the base to collector junction. So these two junctions basically have some capacitance of its own due to the depletion charge and due to the accumulation of excess minority carriers. So we have a capacitance here. Let us call this capacitance CBE to denote the base to emitter capacitance, and we also have a capacitance which is connected here. let us call this capacitance CBC to denote the base to collector capacitance. Okay. Now note that CBE and CBC, the base to emitter junction capacitance and the base to collector junction capacitance, are not externally connected capacitors. These are the capacitance of the transistor at the two junctions itself. Okay. So I repeat again that this capacitance C0, this capacitance CE and this capacitance CI are basically the capacitors which are externally connected or intentionally connected to the transistor to get some properties. Okay. Now these three capacitors CI, CE and C0 are intentionally connected to the transistor externally. On the other hand, these two capacitors CBC and CBE are basically not connected externally. These two capacitances are basically internal capacitances of the transistor at the two PN junctions. Okay, so these two capacitors CBC and CBE are basically internal capacitances due to the two PN junctions of the transistor. So let me write it here. CI, C0 and CE are basically externally connected capacitors. Of course, when you buy a transistor amplifier from the market, the manufacturer of the amplifier would actually connect these capacitors for you. You don't have to connect these capacitors yourself. And as I stated that this entire part, when you buy from the market, this entire part is actually sold to you. Okay, you get this entire part basically. Okay, and this CBC and CBE are basically internal capacitances, internal junction capacitances of the transistor. Okay, now let us see or let us discuss how these capacitances actually affect the frequency response. So now the first question is, what do I mean by the frequency response? So frequency response is basically understanding how your transistor amplifier or how the gain of your transistor amplifier is basically behaving with the change of frequency. Okay, so in very simple language, frequency response defines how the gain of the transistor amplifier is behaving with change of frequency. So we have actually calculated the gain of the transistor amplifier when we did a problem. Okay, and while doing that problem, we actually assumed that these capacitances or the externally connected capacitor CI, C0 and CE basically behave as short circuit at the frequency at which we are considering the AC signal. Okay, so when we consider the AC analysis or when we consider the AC small signal model, we really assume that these three capacitors CI, CE and C0 are basically behaving as short circuits at the considered frequency. Okay, now let us assume that I lower the frequency. Okay, so first of all I would like to say one thing, that this gain which we calculate assuming that Ci, Ce and C0 is basically known as the mid-band gain. Okay, so I again repeat that when we actually calculate the gain of the transistor, which we have done earlier, when we calculate the gain of the transistor amplifier, we assume that at the frequency of the signal, Ci, Ce and C0 are basically behaving as short circuits, and that is why we do not put these capacitors in the small signal AC model. Now, this gain that we calculate assuming Ci, Ce and C0 are behaving as short circuits is known as the mid-band frequency gain. Okay, so let me write it here. The gain that we calculate assuming Ci, Ce and C0 are short circuits or behave as short circuits, and there is also another condition, CBE and CBC behave as open circuits, is known as mid-band frequency gain or mid-band gain. This is often denoted by A0 or AV0. Okay, so let us now understand why I said that when we calculate the gain, we actually assume this CBC and CBE are behaving as open circuit. So if you remember, we assumed that this Ci, C0 and Ce basically behave as short circuit, and that is why we had not put them in the AC model. Okay, similarly, we assume that this CBC and CBE would basically behave as open circuits. If we do not assume that CBE and CBC behave as open circuit, then we had to put them in our small signal model. So let me clarify this thing. So we had only assumed that when we are considering small signals, this base to emitter junction is basically behaving as a resistor. So the base to emitter junction is basically behaving as a resistor whose magnitude is given by R pi. Okay, now this capacitor CBE basically comes in parallel with this resistor R pi. Okay, this is also true for the diode. If you remember the small signal equivalent model for the diode, the small signal equivalent model of the diode consisted of this diffusion resistance RD and this capacitance CD, which actually takes into account both the depletion and the diffusion capacitance. Okay, so here also, because the base to emitter junction is actually a diode or actually a PN junction, therefore this resistance, this small signal resistance R pi basically comes in parallel with CBE. Now if we assume that CBE is an open circuit because R pi and CBE are in parallel, then if we assume that CBE acts as an open circuit, then only we can replace the base to emitter junction by this resistor R pi, which we have done. So we have actually replaced this base to emitter junction by this small signal resistance R pi and the collector to emitter junction by this dependent current source GMV pi. Okay, if this capacitor actually provided a finite impedance, then we had to put this capacitor in parallel with this resistance R pi, okay, in the small signal equivalent model. And if this capacitor actually acted as a short circuit at the considered frequency, then we actually had to replace this part, this capacitor CBE, with basically short circuit in parallel to R pi. So in that case, no current would actually flow through this resistor R pi, which is actually the base to emitter junction, but the AC current would actually flow through the short circuited path, okay, which we do not want. Okay, so this capacitor is assumed to behave as an open circuit at our considered frequency. Now you may ask the question that why should this capacitor be considered to behave as an open circuit at the considered frequency, but the other capacitor like Ci, C0 and Ce are considered to be short circuit at the considered frequency. So the answer is that these two capacitors, the CBC and CBE, are really small, and we know that the impedance of the capacitor is given by 1 by j omega c. Okay, so if the impedance of the capacitor is given by 1 by j omega c and this capacitance C is really small, then the impedance of these capacitors is very large. Okay, and that is why these two capacitors CBC and CBE can actually be considered to be open circuits at our considered frequency. Okay, on the other hand, this capacitor Ci, Ce and C0 are actually larger. Okay, and that is why these capacitors behave as short circuits at the considered frequency. Okay, now the range of frequency over which this consideration is valid is basically known as the midband frequency. So let me write it here. The range of frequency over which Ci, C0 and Ce can be considered to be short circuits and CBE and CBC can be considered to be open circuits is known as the midband frequency. We will discuss why this frequency range is known as the midband and not the high band or the low band. Okay, so the range of frequencies over which the three external capacitors can be considered to be short circuits and the two internal junction capacitors of the transistor can be considered to be open circuit is known as the midband frequency range. Okay, so midband frequency range. Okay, so if we draw our gain, the voltage gain AV versus the frequency omega, the gain is really constant over a mid range of frequencies. So let me use a different color. So the gain is really constant over the middle range of frequencies. Okay, and the value of the gain in the middle range of frequencies is basically denoted by A0, just as I stated earlier. Now let us understand that what would happen if I actually tune the frequency to a very low value. Now if I basically reduce the frequency to a very low value, these three capacitors, this Ci, C0 and CE basically do not act as short circuit anymore. Okay, so if Ci basically do not act as short circuit, then Ci would basically provide a finite impedance to the path of the AC base current, because the AC base current has to basically flow in this direction. Okay, so if Ci does not act as a short circuit at the frequency of the AC signal, then Ci basically provides a finite impedance to the path of the AC base current, and so the AC component of the base current is basically reduced. If the AC component of the base current is reduced, then the AC component of the collector current would also be reduced, which would basically reduce our voltage gain. Okay. Similarly, if C0 does not act as a short circuit anymore, then C0 would also provide a finite impedance to the path of the AC voltage. Earlier, C0 was basically acting as a short circuit to the AC voltage, and therefore the entire output voltage would actually drop across this load resistor RL, or the entire AC component of the output voltage would actually drop across this load resistor RL. Now, if I reduce the frequency to a very low value, then C0 would actually provide a finite impedance, and so a part of the AC voltage or a fraction of the AC component of the output voltage would also drop across this capacitor C0, and as a consequence the output voltage that appears across this load resistor RL would be reduced. So basically the gain is again reduced. Okay. Similarly, if CE does not act as a short circuit at the frequency, that is, if we lower the frequency too much, then when CE does not act as a short circuit at the frequency of the input signal, then again the AC current would not actually flow only in this path, because now CE basically provides a finite impedance. Therefore, a part of the AC current would also flow across this load resistor RE. Okay, so basically across this parallel combination there would be a AC component of the input voltage drop. Okay, or if CE provides a finite impedance, then a part of the AC input voltage would actually drop across this parallel combination, which basically means that the fraction of the input voltage that drops across this base to emitter junction is basically reduced. Okay, so this basically reduces the AC component of the base current, and if the AC component of the base current is reduced, then the AC component of the collector current also reduces, and if the AC component of the collector current reduces, this basically decreases the magnitude of the output voltage, which means that the voltage gain is actually reduced. Okay, so the effect of these three capacitors CE, C0 and Ci is basically to reduce the voltage gain at the low frequency range, and when this signal is exactly a DC voltage, then this Ci, C0 and Ce would basically act as open circuits, and so if they act as open circuits, the output voltage or the AC component of the output voltage would basically be 0. Okay, so these three capacitors basically decrease the voltage gain at the low frequency range. Okay, so at the low frequency range this gain basically tapers off, and when the frequency is 0, the gain is exactly 0. Okay, so let me write it here. So gain falls off in the low frequency regime due to C0, Ce and Ci. Okay, now let us understand what happens in the high frequency regime. Okay, high frequency basically means very high frequency. Okay, so let us understand what happens in the high frequency regime. So in the high frequency regime, just as I stated that these two junction capacitance would basically behave as short circuits. Okay, when the frequency of the input signal is very high, then the base to emitter junction capacitance and the collector to base junction capacitance would basically behave as short circuits. Okay, so in the equivalent model, let us see how do we draw the equivalent model in this case. We have this base, this collector, and then this emitter. So earlier in the moderate frequency regime, we would actually replace this, or we would actually model this base to emitter junction by this resistor R pi. So this is R pi, and we would model this collector to emitter junction by this dependent current source GM V pi, where V pi is the AC component of the voltage drop across this resistor R pi. Now, if these two capacitors CBE and CBC basically act as short circuits, then we actually have to, these two capacitors basically come in parallel with R pi CBE and with this dependent current source, so CBC. Now if these two capacitors basically act as short circuit at very high frequencies, then basically the AC component of the voltage drop across R pi basically reduces to 0. Okay, so if that happens, this basically means GM V pi would also reduce to 0, and then this GM V pi would entirely flow across this short circuited path over here. If there is any current, even if there is any GM V pi, if there is any AC component of the collector current, that collector current would entirely flow across this short circuited path, which basically means that there would be no output AC component of voltage, or there would be no AC component of the voltage at the output. Okay, so gain would be reduced to 0 at very high frequencies when these two capacitors CBC and CBE would basically act as short circuits. Okay, so at very high frequencies, again the gain is basically reduced to 0. Okay, so at very high frequencies the gain basically tapers off, and this happens due to the internal junction capacitance of the transistor. Okay, gain falls off at very high frequencies due to the internal junction capacitance CBE and CBC. Okay, now this frequency range over which the gain is approximately constant is known as the midband frequency range. So this frequency range is basically known as the midband frequency range. Now it should be clear why this is known as midband frequency, because this band basically falls in the middle. Okay, at very high frequency the gain basically falls off here, and at very low frequency the gain also falls off here. Okay, so only in a middle range of frequency the gain is basically constant and highest, and that is why this frequency range is known as the midband frequency range. And we also have another term which is known as the bandwidth of the amplifier. So how to find the bandwidth of the amplifier? We basically find 2 points at which the gain of the transistor is 1 by root 2 times the maximum value. So here the maximum value is basically A0. So somewhere here we would have 1 by root 2 times A0. So this point is A0 by root 2. Okay, and these frequencies at which the gain is basically 1 by root 2 of the maximum value. These two frequencies are known as cutoff frequencies. So let me draw a vertical line over here. This is the lower cutoff frequencies and this is basically the upper cutoff frequencies. Okay. So lower cutoff frequency and this point is basically the upper cutoff frequency or the higher cutoff frequency. So upper cutoff frequency, and then the difference between the lower cutoff frequency and the upper cutoff frequency is basically known as the bandwidth of the transistor amplifier. Okay, so this difference or this range of frequency is basically known as the bandwidth of the amplifier. Bandwidth of amplifier. Okay, the range of frequencies between the or the difference between the lower cutoff frequency and the upper cutoff frequency is basically known as the bandwidth of the amplifier. Okay. Okay, let us now do a problem. We have already seen this circuit. This circuit we are just discussing this effect of the different capacitors. And this is again the biasing circuit used in this case is basically the voltage divider biasing. And I repeat that we provide the input voltage here through this capacitor Ci and the output voltage is also taken through the capacitor C0. This is basically to prevent any DC current from flowing into the input signal source and also to prevent any DC voltage from appearing across the output load resistor. Now let us do this problem. So we are given with the information that this RC is equal to 2.2 kilo ohms. RL is equal to 2 kilo ohms. RE is equal to 1.2 kilo ohms. So RE is equal to 1.2 kilo ohms. RS is equal to 10 kilo ohms. So RS is equal to 10 kilo ohms. R1 is equal to 27 kilo ohms and R2 is equal to 15 kilo ohms. And beta for this transistor is equal to 100 and VA, the early voltage for this transistor, is basically equal to 100 volts. So this is the information that we are provided with and we are asked to calculate the input resistance Ri of this transistor amplifier and the voltage gain AV equals to V0 divided by Vi and the current gain AI equals to IL mod of IL divided by IS, where IL is basically the current flowing through this load resistor RL and IS is basically the AC current which is provided by this input voltage source Vi. So this is basically II or IS. S for source. Okay. Now if you remember, we talked about the input resistance of the transistor amplifier which is given by this Ri here, and input resistance of the transistor Ri is basically the resistance which is seen looking from here, Ri. Okay, and this is the input AC resistance basically. Okay, now this RS, I repeat that this is not a part of the resistance of the transistor amplifier. RS is basically the source resistance of this signal source Vi. So this ideal signal source Vi and this resistor RS actually constitutes the non-ideal signal source. So RS is basically the source resistance of the input signal Vi or the signal source Vi. Okay. So to find Ri, we basically need R pi. Okay. And to find R pi, we basically need the DC component of the base current. So we have to solve the DC component of the base current first. Okay. And we also need R0 to find the gain of the transistor or the gain of the transistor amplifier. And to find R0, small r0 that is, we need to find the DC component of the collector current. Okay, R0 is equal to VA divided by the DC component of the collector current, which we call ICQ or simply capital IC. Okay, so we need to find also the DC component of the collector current. So let us first do a DC analysis of this transistor amplifier first. Now remember that at DC frequency or for DC analysis, this C0 basically acts as a open circuit. So this part of the transistor amplifier does not come into the DC picture, and Ci also basically acts as a open circuit. So this part of the circuit also does not come into the transistor amplifier. Okay, so let us only draw the parts of the transistor amplifier which are important for DC analysis or which come into play when the DC current and DC voltage are concerned. Okay, so let us first draw those part of the transistor and analyze the DC component of the base current and the DC component of the collector current. So we have this voltage source VCC, which is 9 volts. Then we have this R1 equals to 27 kilo ohms. We have RC, which is equal to 2.2 kilo ohms. Then we have this transistor. Then we have this emitter resistance RE, which is equal to 1.2 kilo ohms. We have this resistance R2 here, which is equal to 15 kilo ohms. So 15 kilo ohms, and then we have the ground. CE is basically an open circuit. We had this capacitor CE over here, but this basically acts as an open circuit at DC frequency, and so we are not putting it in the DC circuit or the biasing circuit. Okay, so these parts are basically important for the DC analysis of the transistor or the DC analysis of the base current and the collector current. So this is a voltage divider biasing circuit, and we know that when we actually have a voltage divider biasing circuit, this circuit can actually be simplified as follows. So I am actually directly writing the result here because we have discussed these things earlier. So we had this resistance RC equal to 2.2 kilo ohms, then this transistor, and then this resistor RE, which is 1.2 kilo ohms over here. And this part of the circuit between the base and the ground, this part of the circuit can basically be replaced by Thevenin's equivalent circuit, which has this Thevenin's resistor RTH and Thevenin's voltage VTH. Okay, and we have calculated or we have analyzed the formulas for VTH and RTH earlier. Okay, VTH is basically equal to R2 divided by R1 plus R2 into VCC, which is basically 15 divided by 27 plus 15 into 9 volts, and this gives me 3.214 volts. and RTH is basically the parallel combination of R1 and R2. So this is basically 15 into 27 divided by 15 plus 27 kilo ohms. So this basically gives 9.64 kilo ohms. So VTH is equal to 3.214 volts and RTH is equal to 9.64 kilo ohms. Okay, and we need to analyze this circuit now. So to find out the DC values of the base current, we will be solving Kirchhoff's voltage law in this loop over here, just like we have done previously. Okay, so VTH, so this is, we are writing Kirchhoff's voltage law in this loop drawn in red color. So VTH is basically equal to the voltage drop across the resistor RTH, and this current IB is actually flowing through RTH. Okay, so IB into RTH, IB is the DC component of the base current here, and that is why we have written IB in capital letters. Okay, plus the DC voltage drop across the base to emitter junction, this junction over here, which is approximately equal to VBE on. Okay, so plus VBE on plus the voltage drop across this resistor RE. So remember that through this resistor RE, the emitter current is flowing, IE. So IE RE, so this is equal to RTH is basically equal to 9.64 kilo ohms. This we have seen earlier. So 9.64 IB, where IB is in milliamperes, plus VBE on is approximately 0.7 volts, plus IE is beta plus 1 times IB, and RE is basically 1.2 kilo ohms. Okay, so IB is basically equal to VTH minus 0.7 volts divided by 9.64 plus beta plus 1 into 1.2, and beta is equal to 100, so beta plus 1 is equal to 101, and VTH is 3.214 volts. So this is in milliamperes. 3.214 minus 0.7 divided by 9.64 plus 101 into 1.2. Okay, and this is equal to 0.0192 milliamperes. The DC component of the collector current is given by IC, which also can be written as ICQ, and this can also be written as IBQ actually. Okay, so the DC component of the base current is basically the Q-skinned base current. Okay, IC is equal to beta times IB, which is equal to 100 into 0.0192 milliamperes, which is equal to 1.92 milliamperes. Okay, so we have found out the DC component of the base current and the DC component of the collector current. Okay, so now we have to find the small signal parameters. So R pi is equal to the thermal voltage Vt divided by the Q-skinned base current or the DC base current IB, and the thermal voltage is 26 millivolts or 0.026 volts at room temperature, and IB is basically 0.0192 milliamperes. So this basically gives me 1.354 kilo ohms. Okay, GM is basically equal to beta divided by R pi. Beta is equal to 100 divided by 1.354 kilo ohms, which basically gives me 73.85 millimho. So mho is the unit of conductance, and because we have kilo ohms over here, So when we invert kilo ohms, we basically get millimho. Okay, and R0 is basically equal to VA, the early voltage, divided by the DC collector current or the quiescent collector current. VA was given to be 100 volts and the quiescent collector current is basically 1.92 milliamperes, which basically gives me 52.08 kilo ohms. So we have the three AC parameters or the small signal parameters, AC or small signal parameters. Okay, so now we need to draw the equivalent circuit to find out the voltage and the current gain and also the input resistance. Now this was our original circuit. We will be replacing it with the small signal equivalent circuit for the AC analysis. So we have 3 points here. One is the base. So one is the base, another is the collector and another is the emitter. The base to emitter junction is represented by the small signal base resistance R pi, and the voltage drop across R pi is basically V pi. Now the emitter is basically connected to the AC ground because this capacitor CE is assumed to be a short circuit at the AC frequency. So the emitter is basically connected directly to the ground as far as the AC signal or the AC current is concerned. Okay, so this emitter is directly connected to the ground over here. Okay, now the collector to emitter junction, this is represented by this dependent current source GMV pi. Okay, now between the base and the ground, this resistor R2 is present, and again this point VCC equal to 9 volt, this also acts as the AC ground. So between the base, that is between this point over here and the AC ground over here, this resistor R1 is also present. Okay, so between the base and the AC ground, R1 and R2 are present in parallel combination. So we draw this here between the base and the AC ground. R1, and we also have this resistor R2. R2, and then again between the base, that is this point, and the AC ground, that is this point, this series combination of VI and RS are also present. Okay, so we draw this between the base and the AC ground, this series combination of RS and this AC voltage source VI. Okay, and Ri is basically the resistance seen in this direction, and again I repeat that Ri basically does not include this source resistance Rs. Okay, now let us see at the collector terminal. At the collector terminal, between this point, this is the collector point, and the AC ground over here, this resistance Rc equal to 2.2 kilo ohms is present. Also between the collector, that is this point, and this ground over here or this AC ground over here, this resistor RL is present. So RC and RL are connected between the collector and the AC grounds. Okay, so we basically draw RC and RL between the collector and the AC ground. So let us draw it here. RC RL, and we take the output voltage at the collector node. So we take the output voltage from here. So this is our voltage V0. Okay. Also, between the collector and the emitter, we have this small signal output resistance R0. So, which is basically connected between the collector and the emitter like this. The small signal output resistance R0, and as far as the AC frequency is concerned, the emitter is directly connected to the AC ground through this path. Okay, CE basically acts as a short circuit for the AC current or the AC voltage. So the emitter terminal is basically connected to the AC ground. So between the collector and the AC ground, this resistor R0 is basically present. Okay, so between the collector and the AC ground, let us draw it here. Between the collector and the AC ground, this output resistance or the small signal output resistance R0 is also present. Okay, so this is basically our small signal equivalent model or AC model for the transistor. Now, what is the value of Ri? Okay, Ri is the resistance that is seen when one looks at the amplifier or one looks into the input of the amplifier, input port of the amplifier. And as I stated that this total thing, this Vi and in series with this source resistance Rs basically constitutes the non-ideal voltage source. Okay, and Rs is not a part of the amplifier. Okay, so Ri is basically equal to R2 parallel to R1 parallel to R pi. Okay, which is basically equal to 15 kilo ohms parallel to 27 kilo ohms parallel to 1.354 kilo ohms. Okay, so this gives me basically 1.187 kilo ohms. Okay, now what is the AC component of the voltage drop across the base to emitter junction? So across the base to emitter junction, V pi is basically the AC component of the voltage drop. So V pi from this small signal equivalent model or the hybrid pi model over here. So again I repeat that this model is known as the hybrid pi model. Okay, so V pi is basically Vi divided by Rs plus Ri into Ri. Okay, so this is equal to Vi into 1.187, Ri is 1.187 kilo ohms, this we have already calculated here, and Rs is given to be 10 kilo ohms. So 10 plus 1.187, which basically gives me 0.106 Vs. Sorry, 0.106 Vi. Okay, so we have two informations up to now. One is this Ri, which is 1.187 kilo ohms, and another is that this V pi is basically equal to 0.106 Vs. So these two informations we have already calculated. The collector current, the AC component of the collector current IC is basically equal to Gm V pi, and Gm is basically equal to 73.85 millimoh. Okay, so the output voltage V0. So let us actually see this model over here. This small signal collector current or the AC component of the collector current actually flows through this parallel combination of resistor R0, RC and RL. Okay, so the output voltage V0 is basically equal to, so V0 is basically equal to minus IC into R0 parallel to RC parallel to RL. Okay, why minus? This we have discussed earlier, that why minus, because the current through this resistor is actually flowing in this direction from the ground towards the top. Okay, that is why this V0 is basically negative, or a negative sign appears at V0. Okay. So IC is basically Gm V pi. So minus Gm V pi into R0 parallel to RC parallel to RL. So V pi minus V pi. So Gm is basically equal to 73.85 millimole. So 73.85 millimole. And R0 parallel to RC parallel to RL. So this is basically equal to, so I would write it here, multiplied by R0 is 52.08 kilo ohms, RC is 2.2 kilo ohms, and RL is 2 kilo ohms. Okay, and when you multiply millimole by this kilo ohms over here, you get a dimensionless quantity basically. Okay, so minus V pi into 73.85 millimole multiplied by 1.027 kilo ohms. So 1.027 kilo ohms. Okay, so this is equal to minus 75.84 V pi. Now we basically replace V pi from this equation, that V pi is equal to 0.106 Vs. So this is equal to minus 75.84 into 0.106 Vs, and this gives me minus 8.039 Vs. Okay, so the gain, the voltage gain AV is equal to V0 divided by Vs, which is equal to minus 8.039. So we have found out the voltage gain AV. Now we are also asked to calculate the current gain, and the current gain is basically the ratio of the current across the load resistor I0 and the current that the input signal source is providing us, Is. Okay, so let me actually show this currents here. So I0 is the current which basically flows across this load resistor RL, and Is is basically the current that the input signal source Vi is basically providing. So Is. Okay, so what is I0? I0 is simply V0 divided by RL. Okay, so I0, so let me write it here. I0 is simply V0 divided by RL, and Is is simply equal to Vs divided by Rs plus Ri. These two formulas are not difficult to understand. So I0 is basically equal to V0 divided by RL, and Is is basically equal to Vs divided by Rs plus Ri. So this current gain AI is basically mod of I0 divided by Is, which gives us mod of V0 divided by Vs times Rs plus Ri divided by RL. Okay, and V0 divided by Vs is basically our voltage gain AV. Mod of AV into Rs is basically equal to 10 kilo ohms, and Ri was, we had calculated earlier, this was 1.187 kilo ohms, and RL was basically 2 kilo ohms, so divided by 2. Okay, and the voltage gain we had calculated in the previous page to be 8.039 minus 8.039 actually, and we have this mod sign here, so this is 8.039 multiplied by 187 divided by 2. So if I calculate this, this becomes basically approximately equal to 44.96. Okay, so this is basically our current gain. So we have found out all the three components of the answer, or all the three, we have found out the answers to all the three components of the question. Okay, so this is basically our answer, that Ri is equal to 1.187 kilo ohms. The voltage gain AV is basically equal to minus 8.039, and the current gain AI is basically equal to 44.96. Okay, so this is basically our answer. Okay, let us do up to here today. Thank you everyone.